Have you ever wondered if real-life monsters exist? Not the fictional creatures from our nightmares, but those who walk among us, hidden behind the masks of normalcy. Today, I'm going to share one of the most disturbing cases in history, the story of Albert Fish. This tale is not for the faint of heart, so brace yourself for a journey into the darkest corners of the human soul. Albert Fish was born Hamilton Howard Fish on May 19, 1870 in Washington, D.C. His early life was marked by tragedy and hardship. His father died when he was just 5 years old, and his mother, unable to care for him, placed him in an orphanage. It was here that Fish's descent into madness began. The orphanage was a harsh environment where he endured physical and emotional abuse. Rather than breaking his spirit, the abuse seemed to warp it, igniting a fascination with pain that would later manifest in horrific ways. Fish's early adult life seemed relatively uneventful. He worked as a painter and handyman, married, and had 6 children. But beneath this veneer of normalcy, he harbored dark, twisted fantasies. Fish began experimenting with self-harm, driving needles into his body and flogging himself with a nail-studded paddle. These acts of self-mutilation were just a prelude to the monstrous crimes he would commit. In the early 1900s, Fish moved to New York City, where his depravity escalated. He began preying on children, luring them with promises of work or treats, only to subject them to unspeakable torture and death. His first known victim was a young boy named Francis McDonnell, who was found strangled and beaten in a wooded area in Staten Island in 1924. Despite a description of the suspect, the police had no leads, and Fish continued to roam free, seeking out his next victim. The most infamous of Fish's crimes was the kidnapping and murder of 10-year-old Grace Budd. On May 25, 1928, Fish answered an advertisement placed by Edward Budd, who was looking for work on a farm. Posing as a farmer named Frank Howard, Fish visited the Budd family, charming them with his grandfatherly demeanor. He offered to hire Edward, but then turned his attention to Grace, asking if she could accompany him to a supposed birthday party for his niece. The Budd family, trusting the kindly old man, agreed. Grace was never seen alive again. Fish took Grace to an abandoned house in upstate New York, where he committed atrocities that defy comprehension. He later described these acts in a letter sent to Grace's family, a letter so horrific that it left seasoned detectives and journalists shaken. The letter detailed how he tortured, killed, and cannibalized the young girl. The police, horrified by the contents, used the letter's postmark and distinctive stationery to trace it back to Fish, finally leading to his arrest in 1934. During his trial, Fish's monstrous nature was laid bare. He confessed to the murders of Grace Budd and several other children, reveling in the details of his crimes. His confessions included acts of cannibalism and sadistic torture that shocked the nation. Psychiatrists who examined him were divided on whether he was insane or merely evil. Fish claimed to be guided by religious delusions, believing that his acts of cannibalism were a form of sacrifice. Regardless of his mental state, the jury found him guilty, and he was sentenced to death. Albert Fish was executed by electric chair at Sing Sing Prison on January 16, 1936. His final words were, "I don't even know why I'm here." Even in death, he remained a chilling enigma, a real-life monster whose crimes continue to haunt the annals of true crime history. The story of Albert Fish is a reminder that the most terrifying monsters are not those of legend or fiction, but those who walk among us. Fish's ability to blend into society, his calculated cruelty, and his complete lack of remorse make him one of the most disturbing figures in criminal history. His case forces us to confront the darkest aspects of human nature and the terrifying reality that true evil can hide in plain sight.